There's a pattern destroying your potential that you probably don't even recognize. Every interaction, every conversation, every room you enter reveals the same self-sabotaging behavior. Your energy radiates neediness. The way you carry yourself broadcasts insecurity. Your voice, your posture, your reactions, all telegraph a desperate message. Please accept me. This constant broadcasting of need for validation creates a predictable outcome. Others instinctively slot you into a category that guarantees you'll be overlooked, not because they're malicious, but because humans are hardwired to respond to social signals. When your signals scream, "I need your approval to feel okay," people unconsciously downgrade their assessment of your value. You become the reliable person, the safe option, the one who never causes problems, because you never stand for anything. But there exists an entirely different way to move through the world. Imagine a presence so grounded in self-knowledge that it bends social situations toward itself without effort. This isn't about aggression or dominance displays. It's about cultivating such deep self-possession that you become magnetic precisely because you're not chasing anything from anyone. This quality makes people lean toward you, seeking your approval, rather than you seeking theirs. Historical figures who shaped civilizations understood something crucial about human nature and power. They recognized that pursuing universal affection is a fool's errand. Popularity shifts with the wind, granted and revoked based on others' momentary feelings. But influence, the kind rooted in demonstrated value and unwavering standards, creates lasting impact that transcends temporary opinions. Today's discussion goes far beyond surface-level confidence tips or motivational platitudes. We're dissecting the specific behavioral mechanisms that either drain or concentrate your social power. You'll learn to identify the exact moments when you surrender influence, and more importantly, how to stop those leaks immediately. This is about engineering a fundamental shift in how the world responds to your presence. Understand that implementing these strategies initiates an irreversible transformation. Your social ecosystem will reorganize around your new energy. Some people will distance themselves, uncomfortable with your shift. Others will respect you in ways they never did before. The easy comfort of being universally liked fades, replaced by the more valuable currency of genuine respect. If you're attached to being everyone's favorite person, stop reading now. But if you're prepared to trade popularity for power over your own life, let's continue. Your struggle isn't about lacking inherent strength or capability. The real issue is that you're hemorrhaging influence through dozens of micro behaviors throughout every single day. These small surrenders of power compound until you're operating from a position of chronic weakness without understanding why. Think of personal power like air pressure in a tire. A tire with 7 slow leaks never reaches proper inflation, no matter how much air you pump in. The solution isn't pumping harder, it's identifying and sealing every leak. Once sealed, pressure builds naturally and inevitably. That accumulated pressure transforms you into an undeniable force in any social context. Let's identify and seal each leak systematically. Since early childhood, you absorbed a narrative about social success that's fundamentally flawed. You learned that accommodation equals safety, that compliance earns rewards, that being inoffensive guarantees acceptance. Examine your results honestly. Has this strategy delivered the respect and success you deserve? Look around at people advancing rapidly in their careers and relationships. Notice a pattern. They're not the most accommodating. They're the most decisive. They state their needs clearly. They refuse what doesn't serve them without excessive explanation. They operate from a completely different framework than you've been taught. Throughout history, those who shaped events rather than being shaped by them recognized a harsh reality. Unlimited accommodation in a world where others pursue their interests strategically guarantees you'll be consumed. Being reflexively agreeable isn't kindness, it's a survival mechanism born from fear. It announces, "I'm not a threat," before anyone even asks. A preemptive surrender that guarantees low status. True power emerges when you replace automatic accommodation with deliberate choice. Here's the distinction. that changes everything. Choice means you've considered the request, evaluated it against your priorities, and decided consciously. Automatic accommodation is a fear response, a reflex designed to avoid potential conflict regardless of cost to you. Someone with genuine presence treats people with consistent respect, but that respect comes from personal standards, not fear of disapproval. They're courteous because they value order and civility, not because they need you to like them. When you cross their boundaries, their demeanor doesn't escalate into anger. Instead, it shifts to something more unsettling. Complete detachment, and they simply remove you from their consideration. When you stop performing for approval, you become fundamentally unpredictable to others. Unpredictability is one of the most powerful psychological tools available because it keeps others slightly off balance. Consider two leadership styles. One leader reacts emotionally and visibly to every problem, yelling and showing frustration. Everyone understands this person completely. They're transparent, predictable, and ultimately not intimidating despite the noise. Now consider the leader who processes problems in silence, who responds to mistakes with a steady gaze and calm questions, who never seems ruffled, but whose displeasure carries real weight. This person creates uncertainty, and uncertainty generates respect mixed with caution. People can't predict their responses, so they approach more carefully. To develop this quality, eliminate your automatic smile. For the next 7 days, track every time you smile when you're not genuinely pleased. Count how many times you laugh at statements that aren't actually funny to you. This reflexive, positive signaling is appeasement behavior. It communicates I'm subordinate at a subconscious level that everyone processes without conscious thought. Replace this with neutral composure. Let your face reflect your actual state, rather than what you think others want to see. Allow your gaze to rest on people without rushing to signal friendliness. Initially, this creates discomfort in others. They'll probe with questions. Everything okay? Or you seem quiet today. That discomfort is the sound of power shifting. They're adjusting to not being able to read and predict you easily anymore. Most people relate to silence as something dangerous that must be eliminated immediately. They experience conversational gaps as social failure, rushing to plug every pause with words regardless of whether those words add value. Watch any interaction between two anxious people, and you'll see them talking over each other, interrupting and racing to fill empty space, because quiet feels like judgment of their inadequacy. Powerful communicators employ the opposite approach. They create silence deliberately and leverage it as a tool. Silence isn't absence, it's presence, it's psychological weight. When you remain comfortably silent while others squirm, you've created pressure. That pressure compels people to fill the void, often revealing information they wouldn't share otherwise. They negotiate against themselves. They offer concessions to restore equilibrium. Here's the practical application. When someone directs a question to you, resist the impulse to respond immediately. Let 3 full seconds pass. Maintain steady eye contact throughout this pause. Then answer with measured words. During those 3 seconds, their mind generates multiple anxious interpretations. Have I offended them? Is this a stupid question? What are they thinking? You've created uncertainty before speaking a single word. When you do speak, reduce your pace by roughly 30% compared to your normal speed. Rapid speech signals anxiety and low confidence. It communicates, I might be interrupted, so I need to rush through this, or my thoughts aren't important enough to take time. Measured speech communicates the opposite. It says, I expect you to listen completely, and what I'm saying deserves your full attention. If someone interrupts while you're speaking, don't compete for volume. Don't show irritation. Simply stop. Stop completely and hold silence while maintaining eye contact with the interrupter. Let the awkwardness build. Let everyone present. Feel the rudeness of the interruption. The interrupter will usually stumble to a halt or apologize. Then you resume from exactly where you stopped at the same volume and pace. You didn't fight for the floor. You demonstrated you own it naturally. External validation functions like a drug. you're likely addicted to without realizing it. Every time you check social media engagement, fish for compliments, or over-explain yourself to people whose opinion shouldn't matter, you're chasing a hit of external approval. You cannot build unshakable confidence while dependent on others to regulate your emotional state. If someone can elevate your mood significantly with praise, they control you. If another person can devastate your day with criticism, they own you. You're operating as a puppet with emotional strings that anyone can pull to generate predictable responses. Developing real power requires cutting every string. You must establish complete emotional self-sufficiency. This doesn't mean suppressing all emotions or becoming cold. It means your self-assessment becomes an internal calculation that external voices can't alter. When someone praises you lavishly, you acknowledge it, but your internal sense of worth doesn't inflate. You think, I know my capabilities and limitations. When someone criticizes you harshly, the same response. I know my capabilities and limitations. External input becomes information to consider rather than truth to accept. When you encounter someone genuinely indifferent to whether you approve of them, it creates cognitive dissonance. We expect the social exchange. I validate you. You validate me. We both feel good. When someone opts out entirely, it breaks the expected pattern. They become unpredictable and therefore more psychologically interesting. People actually increase their efforts to impress someone who seems unmoved by their attempts. This creates a crucial test. When you're challenged or criticized, every instinct urges you to defend yourself, explain your reasoning, or counterattack. All three responses hand power to your challenger. Defense implies the attack landed effectively. Explanation suggests they have authority to judge you. Counterattack shows they got it under your skin. Instead of defending, deploy strategic agreement. This technique disarms attacks completely. When someone attempts to insult you by calling you arrogant, weak responses include, no, I'm not, I'm just confident, or why would you say that? Both reactions validate their attack and show it affected you. A powerful response. You're entitled to that assessment, followed by immediate refocus on your activity, or even more devastating, arrogant. That's actually one of the kinder things I've been called. This reframe suggests you've been criticized by more significant people, implicitly demoting the current attacker's importance. Here's another example. Someone accuses you of being selfish for declining their request. Weak response, I'm not selfish, I just have other commitments. This defensive explanation seeks their approval and understanding. Powerful response, I prioritize my commitments carefully, stated as fact, not justification. Or simply, you might see it that way, with zero emotional investment in changing their perception. The agreement technique works by refusing to enter their frame. When they attack, they're trying to establish a framework where they judge and you defend. By agreeing calmly or reframing entirely, you reject their framework. You demonstrate their assessment carries no weight in your reality. This psychological move is deeply unsettling to people who expect you to care about their opinion. Nothing disturbs a bully or narcissist more than a target who seems genuinely bored by their attempts at manipulation. When they realize their provocations generate zero emotional return, no defensive scrambling, no validation of their power, they experience a kind of psychological starvation. They need your reaction. When you deny them that, they typically redirect their attention to more responsive targets. Your mental state influences your physical presence, but this relationship flows both directions. You can alter your psychological state through deliberate physical positioning. You cannot feel powerful while your body contracts defensively. You cannot project strength while physically minimizing yourself. Assess your current posture. Are you collapsed inward, legs crossed tightly, shoulders rounded forward, head tilted down. Each of these positions signals submission, both to observers and to your own nervous system. Expansion is the antidote. Counterintuitively, powerful posture is relatively open rather than guarded. It exposes your center line, chest, throat, stomach. In actual combat, this would be foolish. But in social dynamics, this exposure broadcasts confidence, the unspoken message, I'm not afraid of you, I don't need defensive positioning because I'm not threatened. Occupy space deliberately. When seated, allow your arms to rest on adjacent chairs. Sit with legs uncrossed and comfortable space between them. When standing, distribute weight evenly across both feet, planted and stable. Eliminate fidgeting and unnecessary movement. Each unnecessary movement broadcasts nervous energy. Retrain your visual behavior. When you look at something, truly look at it. Fix your gaze and extract information. When you shift attention, move your eyes smoothly and deliberately to the next point of focus. This focused attention creates discomfort in others because it signals you're not afraid and you're not prey. Apply this to your movement patterns. Have you experienced the awkward hallway dance where you and someone approaching both step the same direction? Repeatedly, you both apologize and contract. Someone with commanding presence selects their path and maintains it. They don't anxiously watch the other person's face. They look toward their destination, past the other person. Physics and psychology align. The object, moving with greater certainty and momentum, prevails. When you move with absolute, purposeful direction, others instinctively adjust their path to avoid you. They sense your intentionality and yield space naturally. This isn't rudeness, it's clarity. You have a clear destination. They're meandering, therefore they adjust. Modern social dynamics operate as an attention economy where focus and availability function as currency. The critical error is giving this currency away freely and constantly. You respond to messages instantly. You accept every invitation. You remain in situations long after you're ready to leave. This constant availability crashes your perceived value. Basic economic principle: abundant supply reduces price. When you're always accessible, your time becomes worthless in others' perception. Historical leaders understood the power of measured distance. They remained visible but controlled access. Excessive familiarity doesn't breed respect, it breeds contempt and presumption. To increase your perceived value, become strategically scarce. More importantly, cultivate genuine willingness to withdraw from situations. In any negotiation, relationship, or interaction, whoever can walk away most easily holds complete power. Fear of loss controls you. If you're terrified of losing a relationship, that person controls the dynamic. If you're desperate to keep a job, your employer can exploit that desperation endlessly. Master the art of strategic departure. Exit social situations while they're still enjoyable, rather than exhausting them completely. Leave conversations while they remain interesting, rather than grinding through every possible topic. End calls first. This creates what psychologists call an open loop in others' minds. Psychological tension from incomplete patterns. When you exit before others are finished with you, you generate curiosity and hunger. They wonder where you're going, what you're doing, whether you have something or someone more important claiming your attention. You shift from a known quantity to an intriguing unknown. Mystery generates both attraction and respect in ways familiarity cannot. Critical element: never over-explain your exits. I need to handle something is sufficient. Weak responses include detailed itineraries. I have to pick up groceries, then do meal prep, then call my mom. This excessive detail is mundane and destroys your mystique. Powerful presence simply withdraws into purpose without justification or apology. Apply this same principle to emotional disclosure. Don't volunteer your insecurities, fears, or trauma to people who haven't earned that level of access. Maintain appropriate boundaries around your inner world. In an era of compulsive oversharing, strategic privacy creates differentiation and perceived depth. Everything discussed so far regarding posture, silence, and strategic behavior represents tactical approaches, but tactics without substance are manipulation, and manipulation eventually collapses under pressure. To develop authentic, unshakable confidence, you must become genuinely competent at meaningful pursuits. You must develop demonstrable skills and capabilities. Historical strategic thinkers didn't just advise leaders to perform confidence, they emphasized developing real understanding, studying deeply, and mastering their domain. Without substance, your silence isn't mysterious, it's awkward. Your intense gaze isn't commanding, it's uncomfortable and strange. You need to construct what psychologists call proof stack, evidence that validates your self-assessment. Your subconscious mind cannot be fooled. It knows whether you're actually capable. You can recite affirmations endlessly, but if you've achieved nothing meaningful or developed no real skills, your inner voice will continuously whisper, "This is false." Authentic confidence emerges from verified evidence of your capability. It comes from repeatedly doing difficult things successfully. It comes from maintaining promises you make to yourself. When you know with certainty you can handle challenges, panic becomes unnecessary. Consider a skilled surgeon facing unexpected complications. They don't panic or freeze. They calmly implement their training. Their composure stems from genuine competence. To command genuine respect and create psychological impact, become genuinely excellent at something meaningful. This could be your professional expertise, your analytical ability, your capacity to understand complex situations. When you do speak, aim to be either correct or, at minimum, deeply thoughtful. Empty words destroy credibility faster than silence ever could. You must develop independent thinking capability. Read extensively across disciplines. Think critically about information. Challenge your assumptions regularly. Question your biases. When you combine genuine high competence with strategic composure, you become a psychological anchor point. People recognize that your contributions have weight. They look to you during crises for guidance. That is ultimate social power. Not loudest voice, but the person everyone turns to when situations become serious. Here's the final barrier that prevents most people from transforming their presence: fear of negative judgment. You're terrified of being labeled selfish if you enforce boundaries. You're afraid of being called cold if you decline requests. You're worried about being seen as arrogant if you succeed significantly. Release this fear entirely. To control your own life, you must accept that some people will cast you as antagonist in their personal narrative. You cannot prioritize your own development and goals without disappointing people who want different things from you. This is mathematical reality, not cruelty. When you invest time building your business, you disappoint friends wanting your attention elsewhere. When you save money strategically, you disappoint people who want you spending it with them. When you enforce self-respect, you disappoint people comfortable exploiting your previous weakness. These disappointments are inevitable and necessary. Historical strategic thinkers recognized this dynamic. They understood that maintaining your position requires willingness to accept negative judgment for right actions. This doesn't mean cruelty or callousness. It means accepting that doing right by yourself will generate criticism, and that criticism doesn't invalidate your choices. Someone with genuine presence accepts their role without excessive explanation or justification. They don't waste energy convincing users that boundaries are reasonable. They simply enforce boundaries and move forward. When you stop fearing labels like selfish, you achieve psychological freedom. Practical application. Can you help me move next Saturday? No, that doesn't work for me. Wow, that's pretty selfish. That's your perspective. Conversation ends. You don't owe strangers, acquaintances, or even friends detailed justification for protecting your time and energy. You owe your potential the right conditions to develop. If protecting your capacity makes you villain in someone's story, accept that role without guilt. The moment you stop requiring hero status in others' narratives, you become director of your own story. That shift from seeking external validation to internal direction is the ultimate confidence transformation. How do you operationalize these principles? Starting immediately, you don't attempt wholesale transformation overnight. You modify the geometry of your interactions incrementally and deliberately through specific behavioral changes. Today, reduce your walking pace by 20% and move with clear directional purpose. Today, implement the 3-second pause before responding to any question. Today, eliminate smiling, except when genuinely pleased. Today, stop apologizing for occupying reasonable space or having legitimate needs. Expect internal resistance. The approval-seeking part of your psyche that's controlled your behavior for years will protest loudly. It will generate anxious thoughts. Everyone thinks we're weird now. They're going to reject us. Fix this immediately. Observe these thoughts without obeying them. Watch that frightened part of you gradually quiet as you refuse its commands. The shift will feel uncomfortable initially. The social atmosphere around you will change noticeably. People will stop treating you casually and will engage with more attention and care. Easy teasing will decrease, while genuine respect increases. You'll recognize that the psychological impact you create isn't fear of physical harm. It's something deeper. Encountering someone who appears psychologically unified and self-directed creates awe mixed with uncertainty. Most people are psychologically fragmented, assembled from parental expectations, unprocessed trauma, and social conditioning. When these fragmented individuals encounter someone who seems genuinely whole and self-possessed, it challenges their self-concept. It reminds them of their own incompleteness. That's the power of the integrated person. You're not trying to fit in because you're building something more important than social acceptance. Confidence isn't an emotion to feel, it's a tool to sharpen and deploy strategically. Develop it systematically. Use it to eliminate limiting beliefs and behaviors. Use it to protect your energy and potential. Build yourself into someone who commands respect because they've earned it through capability and maintain boundaries. These 7 strategies create a comprehensive framework, replacing automatic accommodation with intentional choice, leveraging silence strategically, achieving validation independence, commanding physical space, creating scarcity value, building genuine competence, and accepting misunderstanding. Each strategy addresses a specific mechanism of power loss. Implementation doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency and conscious awareness. Begin with one strategy and develop competency before adding the next. Measure progress by observing how others' treatment of you shifts over weeks and months. The goal isn't coldness or cruelty, it's self-possession and life direction. Remember that respect isn't distributed freely. It's earned through demonstrated value and consistent boundaries. You teach people how to treat you through your actions, far more than your words. Each time you enforce a standard, you train others about your actual expectations. Each time you violate your own boundaries to please others, you train them that you're available for exploitation. The path from people pleaser to self-directed individual requires sustained effort, self-awareness, and courage to disappoint others. But the alternative, remaining invisible and resentful while others use you, extracts far higher cost than temporary discomfort of transformation. Choose your difficulty. The difficulty of establishing boundaries and standards, or the difficulty of perpetual disrespect and self-abandonment. Only one path leads to genuine self-respect and others' respect. Subscribe for additional content on psychology, influence, and strategic self-development. Transformation from approval-seeking to self-directed presence. begins with understanding these principles and continues through daily practice. You possess the capacity to transform how the world responds to you. The only question is whether you'll implement what's necessary to actualize that transformation.